the minyonim, which people are doing in the gardens, etc. So we're relying heavily on the concept of royin zeh. So we have the Mishnah in Brachos, talks about zimun, that kol sheroyin zeh, they are mitztaref to zimun. They can combine to zimun, and the zimun in those times was that just the leader would say the benching aloud, and everyone was yotze. Now I think the general minig is that everyone says their own benching, so the zimun is has less weight, so to speak, in halacha. Either way, so from the concept of royin zeh, which is used in zimun, it's been imported or exported to the union of tziruf for a minyan for davening, kol sheroyin zeh. And this is clear in Shulchan Aruch and Siman Nun Hey, talks about even if a person is outside the shul, is standing looking through a window, and there is royin oisei, so the poskim say that he's mitzaref. I know the Svardish poskim particularly are not so keen about this comparison, but the poil, that's how it's paskin in Siman Nun Hey, that the royin zeh are mitzaref, and that's what we're relying upon in many of these situations where people are, even some places they're standing in their own houses, just standing by their windows, with the window open. But it has to be. I think that at least the window should be open. That there shouldn't be a wall, a mamash wall separating. Even if there's a halacha wall, but there shouldn't be a physical wall. The glass is to my mind a physical wall. In Reb Feivish Schneebalg's Shuvas in Shraga HaMeir, he has discussion about the chicken wire fence. Can you be mitzaref if there's a chicken wire fence in between? And see, he's a little bit noiter lahokil. At any rate, now there has been a discussion about across the street, because clearly in the dinim of Zimun it says that you cannot combine people. If there's Rabbeinu Yoina in Brochus says that if there's a crossing between the two groups who want to join for a zimun, if there's a ma'avar, there's a crossing for other people, shusarabim or a path, so then they're not mitztaref. So the Pri Megadim in Siman, I think it's Siman Nun Hey, he wants to say the same thing would apply for tziruf, for asara, for a minyan, that if there's a for other people to pass by, they're not mitzaref, which obviously makes it more difficult in the people who want to make minyanim in the front gardens to be mitzaref across the street. According to Pri Megadim, that wouldn't work. Now there is a sefer from the Chidah. So you've got Birkei Yosef, and then he's got the sefer Machzik Bracha. So in Machzik Bracha, he talks about, I think it's brought down also in Shara Tshuva, he talks about a certain hospital situation, he calls it Lazaritu, and they had different people in different groups in it looks like little cottages, and there's 6 in one cottage and 4 in the other cottage, and are they mitzaref? And because he says Shalei levatel mehem kedusha l'arboim yoim, not that it shouldn't have to be out without saying kedusha for all this period of their confinement, that he says they are mitzaref, despite that there is a crossing between the two cottages where other people can pass. So whereas the Pri Megadim is Saka Machmir, here we have obviously a Shas Adchak, and I must say that if you're going to follow the Pri Megadim, so even on the pavement, also other people are allowed to pass. It's Mavel Rabim, so we wouldn't be able to start from the pavement to the front gardens either. And I'm not pushing to be machmir like the Pri Megadim for the simple reason that would be undermining the whole distancing, which is in Pikuach Nefesh. So it would be Nimsa Chumrei Kula. You'd be machmir minyan, and you'd be makel in the foshes, which is certainly not a wise thing to do, especially that it's not mefurish it's written in Pri Megadim, but it's not mefurish in Shulchan Aruch. And there's a svara to say that the setting of people sitting and eating as a group is a different type of setting as people davening as a group, and when people are sitting is a more meyushavdika situation where other people passing through would be more of a violation of that setting, whereas people davening, it's may not be such a violation. We used to, even beyond Tikkunam, people in the middle of davening are passing through around with the pushkas and collectors, and so somehow we seem to be a little bit immune to the disruption of people passing by. And at any rate, yesh al malusmech, not to be mevatel the minyonim. Now, then we have another situation. Of course, we say the whole purpose here is to keep a safe distance from one another, and then chas v'shalom not to bring illness upon another person, or to oneself for that matter. Then we have the issue of aliyah l'Torah, and how does it work with aliyah l'Torah? So some have received a psak that the people can make the brachas from a distance, and each one has given his aliyah, and he says Baruch Hu and the birchas HaTorah from a distance. Other places have taken the view that the Baal Korah should say the brachas 7 times before and after. As you found, it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, such a thing, and I'll just explain a little bit of the background. The question here is a simple question. From a year, he gets up in the morning, he says birchas HaTorah. When he has an aliyah l'Torah, he says the same bracha again. Why is he saying the bracha again? What's the reason for a yochid going up to the Torah and saying birchas HaTorah? Now, in earlier times, in Zman HaMishnah perhaps, you'd have the first of the 7 aliyahs would say the bracha rishona. The last of the 7 aliyahs would say the bracha achrona. Even in the Zman HaGemara already, it changed. They started making that each oil l'Torah says a bracha rishona and a bracha achrona. But in those times, the minhag was that each person would lay in his own aliyah. Then we see, as Jadoris can go further, that not everyone is capable of laying his own piece in the Torah, and so we have a Baal Korah. So now the question is, I'm standing there, and b'yom Tikkunam, I'm standing there, and the Baal Korah is reading. So what's the bracha for? So here, the Masas Binyamin, who lived about the time of the Ramah, so that's about 400 years ago. So the Masas Binyamin, he understands, the pshat is like this. The Baal Korah should be saying 7 times brachas before and after. I'm standing there, and I'm saying the bracha for the Baal Korah. According to the Masas Binyamin, there's no real difference whether I'm standing next to the bim or I'm standing a bit further. Because really, I'm saying the brachas, and really the Baal Mitzvah is really the Baal Korah. But we're giving the kibbud to the various individuals that they should say the brachas which the Baal Korah should be saying. That's the way the Masas Binyamin learns. He clearly is arguing with the Rosh, who preceded him by a couple of 100 years, and the Rosh seems to be saying that if you're saying the bracha for the fact that you're standing at the kriya, and you are also mouthing the words quietly, so on that you're making a bracha, which is very strange, schwer zu verstehen, because you're saying the bracha, your laning is not barabim. You're just saying it, you're whispering the words. It's the Baal Korah saying. And so to make a bracha on that is a shver akoponim. So according to the Rosh, you'd have to actually be standing right near the Torah to be able to make a bracha, whereas according to the Masas Binyamin, it's legitimate to be making the bracha from a distance. So so I had a call on Friday.
Call Halashon.
That's a particular place where Baruch Hashem, they managed to procure a Sefer Torah, and there's one family of 6 members, six men who are over Bar Mitzvah, and there's another family who's got, let's say, 4, and another couple of people, whatever. So in the back gardens, they're making a minyan for Kriyas HaTorah, and so we were discussing about the different ways of how to address this, and one of the things which came up is if the family which has of the 6 members, 6 men, they are capable of doing Kriyas HaTorah, or to be Bala Kriya. The others are not so capable. So, and also with the distancing. So, is it possible for a person to have more than one Aliyah l'Torah? So, and then that's one thing. And the other question was, can you call up brothers one after the other? So generally, it's Shaitan Shulchan Aruch, when mitzad ayin hora, one doesn't call up a father and a son one after the other, one doesn't call up brothers one after the other, mitzad ayin hora. So it does say in Poskim, in one of the Meforshim for the Sefer Shari Ephraim, which is written by Ephraim Zalman Magolos, which is a specialist sefer on the Inyanim of Kriyas HaTorah. So in his, I think his first Perek, he talks about this Inyan of, I think it was Perek Shar Aleph Sif Lamed Gimel, somewhere around there, Sif Lamed. He talks about this thing, and in the Ha'oros there has that if they are not calling up with the name, then the Inyan of Ayin Hora doesn't apply. And so that was the advice which I left them with, that they should have from those 6 members of the family, they will lay in themselves. Upon him, they can stand next to the Sefer Torah, even they're not laying, they could also say a bracha, that's not a problem. But because of the union of Ayin Hora, so they shouldn't be called up by name. I was suggesting they should allocate the aliyahs before, who's Rishon and Sheni. I said just to say Yamid Rishon, Yamid Sheni. If not, they're just without any Yamoid. So there is a union of Dafka saying Yamoid. It's got to do with the aliyah for the neshama, etc. So there is an union why we say Dafka Yamoid. And just by the way, what we have seen by Garboy and Baal Mesoda, that by Hagbe, they will never say Yamoid, so for Hagbe or for Glila. They will say Mishaberach, but they wouldn't say Yamoid, because the Inyan of Yamoid is Dafka Shaykh Tzali L'Torah. Okay. Now, what's also happening is people are asking, can you answer? Now there's another alternative of hearing over electronic, of following a minyan over electronic means. So can you answer Baruch Hu, etc.? If you are listening to a minyan, whether with Zoom or other systems where you can hear brachas, and do you answer Amen? Now, we have the famous story of the shul mentioning Gemara Sukkah by the shul Alexandria in Mitzrayim, which is a very, very large shul, and they couldn't hear the chazan, and they had flags. And this is brought down in Siman Kuf Chav Daled, how so long as you know which bracha you are answering to, so then you can answer Amen. After yesterday we had a bar mitzvah here, and I couldn't hear, because across the street, I couldn't hear the brachas after the haftarah. I couldn't hear which bracha he's saying, so I wasn't able to answer Amen. Although everyone else answers Amen, but I can't answer Amen to Amen. I have to answer Amen to a bracha. So but so long as you know which bracha is being said, you are allowed to answer Amen. So now, then there is, in this inyan, you have this concept is brought down that even a barrier of steel will not interrupt between Yidden and their Father in heaven. Therefore, you can answer Amen even if you are a couple of houses away and you hear Kaddish or Brachas, you can answer Amen, as they state in Shulchan Aruch. But then it's also mentioned what happens if there's inyan of Tzoya in between. So then you wouldn't be allowed to answer. Because that does create, because we have a pasuk of Machanecha Kodesh, when the Yidden travel in the Midbar, it's the whole thing, they should have Chisisas Tziasecha, so the presence of Tzoya creates an obstruction for Kedusha, for the Eibish's name, and therefore you can't answer Amen if there is Tzoya between you and the Mevarech. Okay, that's written down in Poskim, and the Munketcher Rov, he mentions this about, for this reason, not to answer Amen when you hear something over the telephone wire, etc., because in between you and the other fellow there will be probably inyonim of which would be mafsik. Just one little observation, that even in the same room, if the tzoya is well covered, so that you are allowed to answer Amen, and so by the same token, the fact that there is between here and where the bracha is being said, there may be taket tzoya, but the likelihood is, in all likelihood, is that wherever it is, that it's covered with sewage pipes, and therefore, even if I was standing at that very spot, I would be allowed to say Amen. So I don't really feel that's such a problem to answer Amen on a remote call. You can start gribbling. Is it the issue where the voice travels, or is it between me and where the voice is being projected? So it's two separate things, yeah? Because voice now, a lot of our voice is traveling by satellites, so going up and down. Whereas I understand it's actually physically on the ground between yourself and where the voice is being produced, where the Kaddish is being said. And as I say, either way, I'm not so worried about the hafsaka of tzoya in between, because invariably in this day and age, that tzoya is going to be covered, and therefore it's not a hefsek. Oh yeah, there's a mute of areas where it's exposed, but that's really very, very much a mute. Now, the other thing which is, though, is a more difficult one. Can you say, if you don't have a minyan in one place, and you have you can through a Zoom, etc., and you are able to get 10 people, can you say Kaddish with a Zoom minyan? And I've heard that there are certain rabbanim who have given a heter for that. Personally, I don't feel that is justified, because even if you talked about a heter of royen zeh, that's royen zeh when you can see physically, and I mentioned before, even a glass window I don't think would be acceptable for royen zeh to be mitzaref. Certainly when you see someone through a Zoom, etc., that's not called royen. It's a very good reproduction of the image of the person who is there, but it's not royen zeh, and therefore I don't think such a minyan would be mitzaref to answer Baruch Hu, not to be answered, to say Kaddish, etc. I don't think that's acceptable. But if you are zooming into where a minyan, a physical minyan is happening, where 10 people are in one area and they are royen zeh, then you can answer all the inyonim of Kedusha and Baruch Hu, etc. There's also become already from before Pesach, people were, when the lockdown started, people were asking Shilas about Tfilas Kelim, and I understand that various Botidinim, including the Federation Beis Din here in London, have established a system where you can register something, a Keli, with them, and they will sell it or give it as a matanas hagoy. Now this is written in Shulchan Aruch, that Hilchos Tfilas Kelim, that if you are stuck in a situation where you have a keli and you can't tovel it, so then you can, for a short term, for Shlosh Yom or something, you can give it as a matana to a goy, and then, because only kelim shall Yisrael are chayav b'tefillah, but kelim which belong to a nochri are not chayav b'tefillah. So, of course, in the current situation, if you have a new keli, it's not going to be a smart thing to start looking out for a nochri on the street. That would be a little bit undermining your distancing measures. So, can you mitzaref? So here in this situation, so various Botidinim have arranged that they will somehow be makne your keli to a nochri, and in that way it's exempt of Tfilas Kelim. Of course, the korev, when the restrictions are come off, and of course you're going to then take and tovel them. Now, the word here is that we have a mitzvah of Tfilas Kelim. And that mitzvah of Tfilas Kelim includes not to use the keli without tefillah. And if some say that Tfilas Kelim is a mitzvah min haTorah, either way, that it's clear that you're not allowed to use a keli which is chayav b'tefillah. I want to clarify something. This only applies to metal min haTorah, possibly, and to glass, which is midrabanan. Kelim like crockery, wood, etc., are not chayav b'tefillah. Plastic is some machmir, Michasitra has it, but it's certainly not min ikar hadin. Min ikar hadin, we're only talking about metal and glass. So you have this keli, and you shouldn't be using it without tefillah. If you are in a situation where you cannot tovel it, and it's not possible to tovel it, and it's not your mitzvah, so here you have the question. You're visiting someone else's house. The person offers you a glass of orange juice. The person is not a Shem Torah mitzvahs. At least on the level he hasn't told this kelim. Do you have the authority to take? I say, excuse me a minute. I'm just going to take your glass and run along to a mikveh. Realistically speaking, you don't have that authority. And on that basis, our poskim who say that you are allowed to drink from that glass, because the issue to use a keli without toveling is because you have to go and tovel it. But when you cannot do that, then there are poskim who allow you to use the keli. Now, so then we have, nowadays we have kelim, you have in Shulchan Aruch, this Eitzah, are giving it to a goy, and then it's not called a Keli Shal Yisrael. As I say, the Taz says that Yisrael should only be relied upon up till Shleishim Yom. So nowadays we have a lot of Kelim, which it says in Kiddush Levana OCS all around, do not immerse, and so as I say, what I normally tell people is, if it's something like a kettle or a sandwich maker, a simpler item, I tell them that you should tovel it. I'm talking about Yom Kippur. I'm not talking about now in lockdown. You tovel it and you leave it to dry out for a couple of days, and the Eibush that help, and it'll work, and that's not a problem. When you have more complex instruments, like for example, you have these coffee makers, Keurig, all these new things, which once they've got a silicon chip, once they've got a little the computer chip in them, there a bit of water will inside that. So in a regular electric kettle, once it dries out, in a couple of days it'll dry out and finished. Where there's an electronic chip, and just a bit of water is going to cause havoc in all the connections inside. It's takanot shachas to tovel. You're just going to ruin it. And so yesh loimar that which the Taz says that after Shloshim Yom you have to tovel it. You can't rely on giving it to a goy. That would work for a keli which can be toveled. But when it comes to a keli which taka cannot be toveled, one should be able to rely on the svara on the heter of Nesina L'Nochri, and to be able to rely it even indefinitely. All right, I'm going to I'll finish off with something else which I came across just recently. The minig, when we by Shema, nothing to do with the discussion till now, but by Shema we hold our tzitzis. And by the Kabtzeni Yachad Be'abakam Hazoretz, we pick up the tzitzis from the four corners. So by Shboch Shoma we hold only the two front tzitzis, and by when it comes to Kabtzeni Yachad Be'abakam Hazoretz, so we gather our four tzitzis from the four corners of the talus or the talus cotton if you're not wearing a talus goggle. And then by in the Parshas tzitzis we kiss the tzitzis 3 times by the mention of tzitzis, by the word or isim oisay, we pick them up and look at the tzitzis. And then the Olam is also knowing by the emes v'yatziv to kiss the tzitzis, and also by lo'ad, and also the 2 lo'ads there. Just a second. Open the siddur. By the words lo'ad kayemes, and then so what's the reason for the kissing of the tzitzis by these 3 points of the end of the parashas tzitzis, and by lo'ad? So the reason for lo'ad is mentioned in Kabbalah, and it's also Rabbi Yaakov Emden mentions in his siddur, that lo'ad is gematria 104, and lo'ad together is 208, and that is a remes to the word kodkoid. And if you remember, the word tzitzis, it says mentioned in Yechezkel, it's like an emanation coming out of the kodkoid. So that's the fringe, the tzitzis of the roish is coming out from the kodkoid, and this when you finish with the tzitzis, so they have it's connected with the inyan of kodkoid. That's how it's brought in Kabbalah. I'm saying very briefly, and it needs more explanation. But I was curious about the emes v'yatziv, and what I saw just now is that this is that is the Avo, which is mentioned in Shema, corresponds to the Avo of Yaakov Avinu, and then in Emes V'Yatziv, this relates to Rochel, and we have the Lashon of Ayishak, Yaakov L'Rochel, the Inyan of Neshikin, and my hunch is that that's the background for the kissing the tzitzis at this point. I'll just finish off. Magid Devorah Yaakov Hukov Mishpat V'Yisrael. The Eibishter gives us mitzvahs, the mitzvahs which he himself does. So the Eibishter gave us a mitzvah of tzitzis, and how does the Eibishter fulfill the mitzvah of tzitzis? So the word tzitzis is a lotion of meitis min hacharakim, looking from the cracks, and we are hidden all over the world on the Eibishter's tzitzis, where we're looking, and we're looking, and we're metzapim l'shur, we're looking for the geula, and especially in this situation, everyone is tzibrochen and crying out at Mosai, when will we see a Yeshua? I want to mention here also, my brother gave him an extra name, Rafal Avram Yeshaya Ben Rivka should have a refuah shleimo, and so we are all with the Eibish's tzitzis. And the Eibish's mekayim the tzitzis by the kabtzeni yachan me'ar bekam fesoretz, that the Eibish should gather each yid from all over the kol katzvi table and bring us to Eretz HaKodesh with Mashiach Tzidkenu, with the geula ha'shleimo v'amitis immediately. Kol tov.